Yeah. So now we will start first talking about cultural diversity in Peru. And what it's so special about Peru is that a lot of it arises because of the geographical diversity that exists in the country. So we can divide Peru into three main geographical areas, one of them being the mountains, which in Spanish is la sierra, then the coast, which is la costa, and the jungle, which is la selva. And then I have here included a few images so that you can visualize how these geographical areas look like. Also, it's interesting to note that Peru has 10,000 years of history, so it is the oldest civilization in South America. And due to its historic past, it has given a lot of time for cultures to develop and also a kind of blend. So nowadays, you cannot find like a culture that's you can find a lot of diverse cultures, but you can also find many that have sort of blended and mixed due to the different immigration factors and just transition from like going from the small towns to the big cities. And this has caused a lot of diversity present in the country. Then we also have 12 UNESCO World Heritage Sites and a vast of natural reserves. So this also adds on to the diversity present in the country. Now, I'll first talk about the demographics of the country. And as you can see from the little table that there is, 60% of people are mestizo. This means that they're a mix between white and you could define it as Indian. But it's not the American Indian. It's an Indian that is typical from the Peruvian highlands, which is from the Andes region. So it's not the same as the American Indians that lived in the United States. Then 25% is American Indian. They're different, as I just said, from the Indians found in the United States, like the area here. But it's a word you could use to define them, as it's sort of similar. Then almost 6% of people are white, and 8.3% are either Black, Japanese, Chinese, or other. So just to sum up that, I think that there's no typical Peruvian, even though 60% of the population is mestizo, which is mixture of white and Indian, or from the Incan Empire, let's say. There's no stereotype because it's such a diverse country. Now, here I'll show two videos that illustrate how different the Peruvian lifestyle can be depending on where you live. So the first one is the capital cities, and the capital city called Lima. And here you'll see that it's extremely modern, so many buildings. So it definitely has an influence on how people interact with others and what their daily life, day-to-day life looks like. So could you play the first video, please? Linguistic diversity. So for me, this statistic is very surprising. There are 47 indigenous languages present in Peru right now. There used to be 63. However, some have been less and less frequently spoken or written, and this has led to their extinction. Now, it's not like it is very easy to find people that speak these 47 languages wherever you go. Definitely, there's some more isolated tribes where these languages are spoken and you don't really have an access to them. Or there might be like a few languages that are just spoken by like 40 people in one specific city. So it is difficult to gain access to all of them. There's three that are the official languages of the country, which are Spanish, Quechua, and Aymara. Spanish is the most popular one. Quechua is the second most popular, and Aymara is the third one. And here I have written how you could say hello in each one of those languages so that you can see how different they are from each other. So usually people only speak Spanish. Then you can find within the mountainous regions that people speak Spanish and Quechua. And then in the southeastern part of Peru, people speak Spanish and Aymara. So it's like, for example, I'm Peruvian, but I just know a few words in Quechua. It is very hard. It is completely different how you structure like sentences. So for instance, in Spanish, you say hola to say hello. In Quechua, you say napaikuyaini, napaikuyaiki. And then in Aymara, you say kamisaraki. So they're very, very different. A problem with these 47 indigenous languages is that not all of them have an alphabet. So some of them are only spoken, they cannot be written. And this definitely plays an important factor, important aspect in terms of how we preserved that linguistic diversity, since it is only spoken. So once the person that speaks it dies, the language also dies with them. So for the past few years, the Ministry of Education has been developing an initiative which is called the Intercultural Bilingual Education. And what they're trying to do is implement a school curriculum in which Spanish is spoken, but at the same time, they give importance to the local language spoken in that specific area, since for a long time, Spanish was the only language spoken in schools. So now they're trying to implement this bilingual syllabus where some classes are in Spanish and then some classes are in the indigenous language spoken in that area or town, city, etc. Just another interesting fact, Spanish is spoken by the 84% of the population. Quechua is spoken by the 13% of the population, and Aymara by 1.7% of the population. Now, if you speak to a Peruvian, I think that one of the things that they say that represents their culture the most is food. Peruvian cuisine is the meeting point of different cultures, since we have the roots from the Inca Empire. That is definitely like the ingredients they used to use to prepare dishes are still very present within our diets. However, we were colonized by Spain, so also that played a role in how our culture developed. And then we also have Japanese, African, French, Chinese, and Italian immigration into our country. So this has also reshaped how our culture is within Peru. Every arriving immigrant group has left its mark on the Peruvian kitchen and has enriched it with techniques and ingredients. So for instance, the Spanish introduced the livestock, the dairy products, and the olives. The Chinese, for example, introduced the stir-fried techniques and soy sauce. And then the Japanese also introduced skills related to preparing fish and seafood in general. So these are a few ways in which other nationalities, other countries have redeveloped Peruvian culture through the kitchen and cuisine. As a result, you can see here that Peru, in the next slide. Peru has been named the best culinary destination in South America many times. I think for 6 years in a row, if I'm not mistaken. But this is definitely a great indication that in Peru, food is amazing. And that's why I think people relate to it so much and identify it as one of the key points in our culture. Now, next slide. The Peruvian cuisine is due to a cultural exchange over time. So I think this is one of the things that has made it so important in our life and so unique, since it's not from one specific culture that it arises, but it's just a mixture of everything. Our cuisine represents the local practices. So for instance, as I was mentioning, where the ingredients come from, the Incas used to use a lot of potatoes in their diets, and we still do that. And then as the immigrants did not have their home ingredients, they would modify their traditional dishes by using ingredients available in Peru. So that was like potatoes, corn, and tubers. So that's how we're an adaptation of everything that came to our country. Yeah. So these are a few examples of the dishes that you'll find in Peru. Something that's very shocking for so many people that I've spoken to is mixing rice and potatoes within the same dish. But this is due to the Inca sort of way of cooking and eating. They used to use a lot of carbohydrates in their diets, and we still have kept those traditions. I could tell you a few names of the dishes you're seeing. So, for example, the middle one where there's like fries, rice, and meat, it's called domo saltado. Then, and this is eaten in like all the country. Then the one in the top right is called ceviche, and it's one of the most popular dishes. It's made with fish, raw fish, and this is mostly eaten in the coast. Then also the one from the corner left is also very eaten in the coast, since the fillings is, one of them is avocado and the other one is crab. So then that's also another ingredient that you only find in the coast. And then, for example, the dish in the corner left, in the left corner, that one down. Sorry, right. Yeah, those two are common in the mountainous regions. So that, for example, the one to the right is a mixture between beans and rice. So these are ingredients that you commonly find in the mountainous areas of the country. Oh yeah, just one more thing from the last slide, sorry. I wanted to mention that we have a festival, like a main gastronomic fair every year, which is called Mistura, and it brings together Peruvian and leading chefs and restaurants once a year in the capital city. And this fair began to appear as something to attract international tourism, but also to value the culture that comes from the culinary aspect of our culture. Okay, thank you.
And before we move on,